Six Nations, folks. Final game of the competition sees Le Crunch, France, taking on England. England have only lost one game, but they are still a fair bit behind the Irish, having not picked up any bonus points thus far in their campaign. And France maybe found a little bit of form with their big win away in Wales, but they are back home for this one. We'll go through some lineups, some stats, recent history, predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. France, as I mentioned, they changed a bunch of guys for that away trip to Cardiff. Sometimes some of those changes injury-enforced ones. And I don't know, maybe a bit of kind of breath of fresh air did them good. So good that he's not made any changes. It is the same lineup that went to Cardiff. So I guess if it ain't broke, if you finally fixed it, don't fix it again. Baille, Marchand, and Atonio, that is the front row. Remember, they had been playing Mauvaka ahead of Marchand, but Marchand gets that start, and he's retained that starting jersey for this one. Flament and Meafou continue on in the second row. Meafou got his debut in that last game, and, big impacts from such a big human being. Just quick hands and his big size around the park, I thought did pretty well. Got substituted kind of relatively early into the second half. Cros, Ollivon, and Alldritt, that is the preferred back row. Cros is the top tackler for the French in this campaign. Alldritt would probably be their top carrier if he hadn't missed one of the games, but I think he is even behind Cyril Baille, who has been very busy. But he captains the side. Garrec, maybe unsurprisingly, retains the number 9 jersey ahead of Fickou for this one, and I do believe that's going to be the way it is going forward, at least until the return of Antoine Dupont. Garrec managed to get himself on the board. He showed some real confidence with that pass behind the back. He just looks every part the test player, man. And Ramos at 10 directed the show pretty well. I know he's played a fair bit of 10 for Toulouse, but playing at test level was obviously going to be something different. But, to start at 10 for Ramos is not his usual job, but he did it pretty well. Admittedly, over a Welsh team that's not been playing the house down, but still, France were tested for large periods of that game, but managed to come away with it really comfortably. Depoortere and Fickou continue on in the midfield. I looked up Fickou's numbers because he is often, given a lot of credit for his defensive work. He's made 40 tackles and missed 2, so yeah, pretty good numbers from Fickou. Penaud's been a bit of a mixed bag on the right wing. He's always dangerous. Most defenders beaten for France. Most offloads. I think he might be overall in the competition, but also most turnovers conceded. So it's been a little bit more hit or miss this campaign. Bielle-Biarrey on the left wing, and then Barre, Barre is there at fullback. He's a big dude to have at fullback, but he doesn't go up against Freddie Stewart for those high balls in this one because Stewart's not in the English squad. That would have been an interesting aerial battle. Mauvaka, Sebastien, Taofifenua, and Georges-Henri Colombe are the front row replacements. Colombe managed to get himself on the board from the bench last week. His impact was good. Taofifenua is another guy who managed to get himself on the board last week with that charge down. Ruma, Boudéon, Fickou, and Moefana. So the 6-2 split continues for the French. Stable. England have made a little bit of tinkering changes, but nothing too dramatic. They are without Faye Waboso for this one. He self-reported some kind of concussion signs, so essentially dropped himself. So Tommy Freeman switches to the right wing for this one. Elliot Daly is promoted to the left wing. I feel like with all the kind of sexy wingers that there's in the English ranks, they could have gone with a guy that's a bit more of an excitement machine than Elliot Daly, but it's a safe pick. He's got a big old boot on him, and he's certainly very experienced there on that left wing. Furbank continues on at fullback. As I mentioned, there's no spot for Freddie Stewart in this side. Slade and Lawrence were a hell of a combo last week in the midfield. Lawrence was tackling the house down, and Slade with the link-up plays. That stupid pass from the ground, which was incredible skill sets. Like everyone was talking about the Garrec pass, but Slade's one was just as skillful, different set of skills, but still bloody easy on the eye. George Ford, Alex Mitchell continue on. In the halves, there was a little bit of talk about Marcus Smith, taking that spot after coming off the bench and scoring that drop goal, and Ford's boot being a little bit wayward. But Borthwick is not that prone, I think, to wholesale sexy changes. So he continues on with the bit of the stable option with George Ford. The forwards Gensch, George, and Dan Cole. That's the same front row. Itoje and Martin in the second row. And I do think George Martin's addition to that second row has been a welcome one for England. He just adds that extra bit of mongrel. Chesham is in the back row for this one, as he was last week. Underhill and Ben Earl. Ben Earl has been phenomenal. I won't hear anyone say anything bad about Ben Earl's performances, man. Most carries, most defenders beaten in the Six Nations. One of England's top tacklers, wins turnovers, just does absolutely everything. I mean, Underhill's been cracking as well at the breakdown and tackles and whatnot too, but Ben Earl has basically been overshadowing everybody. Bench-wise, Theo Danjo, Marla, Will Stewart, that's the same. Ethan Roots is back into the 23 on the bench. There's no lock on the bench because Don Brandt is the other forward, but they've got Chesham there, so they've got a lock that can shift in if needs be. Danny Keir, Marcus Smith, and Manu Tuolangi is back into the 23. So the 3 back replacements for England. Stats-wise, England have conceded the fewest meters in the Six Nations, which is encouraging. But their tackle percentage is only around 85 or 86%, which is on the lower side. But sometimes that happens with sides that play the kind of blitz-style defense that they don't make all the tackles, but they like to at least disrupt. So the fact that the run meters conceded are low, I would say, is an encouraging sign. Like France, by tackle percentage, are closer to 90%, which would seem like they have the better defense, but they've certainly conceded more meters. So it's kind of like no one stat can perfectly encapsulate that. Maybe points conceded is the one that really counts. England have more clean breaks than France, which is something I wouldn't have expected going into the Six Nations campaign, because France in recent times have tended to have a much more fluid attack than the French, but the French attack has been a little bit disjointed, and England maybe just starting to click a wee bit. Maybe they've been reading some columns in the media and getting advice from there, because that's how tactics are developed. Yeah, right. France have the heaviest pack in the Six Nations pretty comfortably. They're usually kind of 50, 60, 70 kilos heavier than their opponents, but interestingly, they maul it less than England, and they offload a lot more. So despite the fact they got all these big units, it's not just necessarily that kind of pure power game. They've got that skill set that we all know about. Their offload count is more than double England's one, so yeah, the French still like to chuck the ball around. Recent history between the sides is a pretty tight split. France have won 3 of the last 5. England got a couple of wins in 2020 and 2021, but they were close, 22-19 and 23-20. One of those was that kind of Autumn Nations Cup final during the COVID times, but there's one real blowout there, and that's the most recent game, which was 53-10. But remembering that was when Steve Borthwick had kind of just taken over, France were kind of at the peak of their powers, so don't know how much you read into that. The average score across the last 5 games is 28-17 to France, but as I said, that 53-10 result really kind of blows that out. Most of the games tended to finish a bit closer than that, put it that way. Predictions-wise, the bookies are saying the French by 7. The Rugby Forecast algorithm's going a step further and saying the French by 14 for this one. It is on in Lyon. Remember, there's no games in Paris this Six Nations for France. It's a 9 o'clock local kickoff, which I think is 8 o'clock for you guys in the GMT area, which is going to be 9 o'clock in the morning for me here in NZ, which is a great time to be watching games. I much prefer the late kickoffs to the afternoon ones with my time zone. Angus Gardner from Australia is the ref. Number 4 in the world, France. Number 5 in the world, England. What do you guys reckon? Who's going to get it done? England resurgent with the second best overall record in the Six Nations. Can they just go 4 from 1 for their campaign and really put some misery on France? Or do you think France bouncing back with that win over the Welsh will be too good? You guys let us know your thoughts, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.